Table here in New York, we have Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. He's a member of the Foreign Relations, Judiciary, and Appropriations Committees. And you have Pete Hegseth and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Dan Kane testifying tomorrow. I want to hear about that. Also, the potential meeting between Trump and the leader of China. But first, Iran says no to the American proposal. Oh, what's your take?
Well, this just proves that no matter what justification Trump gives or Secretary Hegseth gives for why he went into this war in Iran, he's failing. Your average American's waking up today to gas more than $4.50 a gallon, and that's just going to keep going up. We're going to see groceries go up. We're going to see gas supply challenges this summer. He hasn't made progress on securing Iran's enriched uranium. He hasn't made progress in overthrowing the regime. And the Iranians have proven that even with just drones and fast attack boats, they can control the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah. So the counter from Iran, I suspect, was unacceptable. Reparations, giving them sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. But what Trump's ill-conceived war in Iran, a war of choice, has proven is that Iran now has a stronger strategic weapon in control of the Strait of Hormuz than they had before, with the threat of a potential nuclear weapon. As he goes into this meeting Thursday, Friday with Xi Jinping in Beijing, Trump may be bored with the war in Iran, but Xi is certainly going to be focused on it. And our adversaries, both China and Russia, are helping strengthen Iran's hand. Recent reporting makes it clear that they're providing the technical means, the support to help them target and more lethally attack both commercial shipping and American bases and troops. We're in a very bad spot. And I suspect Secretary Hegseth won't have any good or clear path out of it when he appears in front of the Appropriations Committee tomorrow.
Yeah. Senator, this is a war of choice that Donald Trump began, but the American people are suffering, and many others around the world are suffering. But just give us a sense of what you think at this point is the best way out of this war.
So the budget that's going to be presented by Secretary Hegseth tomorrow shows that this Department of Defense doesn't know what's the right way out. Ukraine is the world leader in drone technology and in drone intercepting technology. We should be embracing them with open arms, learning from them, and partnering with them. We've got European allies ready and willing to work with us on opening the Strait of Hormuz, not by force, and we've got our Gulf allies already embracing Ukraine's capacity to intercept the Shahed drones that Iran is using to attack them and to attack gas and oil facilities and to close the strait. When we got the budget from President Trump last year, it had zero for our partnership with Ukraine. Congress put $400 million into it. They didn't release it for months and months and months. We're going to insist on more money for Ukraine and a closer partnership. Instead, what Hegseth's asking for is a new Trump class of Golden Fleet destroyers, a $26 billion wasted monument, floating targets that is going in exactly the wrong direction. In the age of drone warfare, things need to get smaller, lighter, faster, more distributed. Instead, this Pentagon wants to go back to the 19th century and build another great global fleet of destroyers, a ridiculous idea that we should reject out of hand.
Senator, when you're looking ahead to your personal nightmare around what might happen with this summit with Xi, and you warn against giving the store in negotiations in exchange for fig leaves.
Right.
What does that mean? What are you worried might happen there with Trump?
So it's not just my worry. I led a resolution with Senator Ricketts, Senator Wicker, Chairman of Armed Services, Senator Cruz, Chairman of Commerce, 16 senators, equal Democrat, Republican, to say, don't abandon Taiwan. Don't change position on Taiwan. Don't give up the advanced chips that are going to allow China to leapfrog ahead of us on AI. Artificial intelligence will determine who wins this century. And there's 4 components to winning in AI: energy, talent, data, chips. They've got a bigger data set. They're putting power online faster than we are. They've shown with DeepSeek that they've got comparable talent. The only thing we've really got is control of chip design. And the previous administration, the Biden administration, worked closely with our allies to constrain China's access to those chips. I grilled Secretary Lutnick when he last appeared in front of us about permitting the export of NVIDIA H200 chips. I'm concerned that Trump's going to say, sure, fine, here, have the next class of chips in exchange for buying some soybeans or chicken.
Yeah, the Iran war certainly to shadow this summit. We should also note the third party to that conflict, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Noteworthy, gave an interview with an American outlet, 60 Minutes, over the weekend, saying this war is not over. And he gave his list of conditions of why he thinks would need. And one of them is like Iran's militant groups would stop. And that's not even being talked about right now between the U.S. and Iran. So it shows that Israel still really wants to push forward. But, Senator, we also want to ask you about Secretary Hegseth, who you'll talk to tomorrow, because he's going after Democratic Senator Mark Kelly again. Hegseth accused the Arizona senator of, quote, blabbing yesterday about a classified Pentagon briefing during a TV interview about the Iran war. Here's what Kelly said to CBS News.
A number of times we've been briefed by the Pentagon on specific munitions. Actually, it's been pretty detailed on Tomahawks, ATACMS, SM-3s, THAAD rounds, Patriot rounds, so those interceptor rounds to defend ourselves. And the numbers are, I think it's fair to say it's shocking, how deep we have gone into these magazines, because this president got our country into this without a strategic goal, without a plan, without a timeline. And because of that, we've expended a lot of munitions.
So following that interview, Hegseth posted on social media, writing that the Department of Defense's legal counsel would review those comments made by Kelly. The Pentagon declined to comment further. Kelly responded to Hegseth's post with a video of the two during a recent Senate hearing, writing, "We had this conversation in a public hearing a week ago, and you said it would take years to replenish some of these stockpiles."
He's such a joke.
That's not classified. It's a quote from you.
A dangerous joke.
Hegseth's new call to investigate Kelly comes just days after a federal appeals court appeared ready to reject the defense secretary's effort to punish Kelly for posting a video last November with other Democrats calling on U.S. service members.
We're in the middle of a
to refuse
war
the orders.
that he pushed to get into, and instead of focusing on the war at hand, he's doing Donald Trump's bidding, trying to go after political enemies. Really? That's how he's spending his time?
Senator Coons, feels like a good question for you tomorrow.
And let me remind you, he fired the Secretary of the Navy. He fired the Chief of Staff of the Army in the middle of a naval blockade and a war. And I don't know this specifically. I'm not revealing any classified information, but it's a pretty good guess that those two were fired because of the advice they were giving. Professional military advice about how advisable or inadvisable this war was. The fact that we've fired off a huge number of munitions that are difficult to replace is just public knowledge. And Secretary Hegseth is focused on grooming, on attacking the Pentagon press corps, on attacking my colleagues, rather than the very real threats that we face, and making sure that President Trump is really prepared for his summit with Xi Jinping. He's not focused on the right adversaries. He, in fact, said the other day that the main adversaries in this war in Iran are those of us in Congress.
Article 1, the
Article 1 branch.
Instead of the Revolutionary Guard. Really quickly, I hear from retired generals, admirals, a lot of people at the Pentagon about a real concern that the Pentagon is just an absolute chaos and is being hollowed out under Hegseth's just disastrous leadership. What can you tell us?
Well, we've had a briefing before about how one of the clear signs that Xi Jinping and the People's Liberation Army is not ready to go to war is the number of their senior generals and admirals who've been removed.
Right.
And I asked the question, well, what do they assess when they see how many of our most senior generals and admirals? One of the very first things Hegseth did was to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the chief of naval operations, and it has simply continued. More than a dozen of the most experienced, most senior American military leaders have been fired. That's not in America's best interests.
Democratic member of the Foreign Relations, Judiciary, and Appropriations Committees, Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. Thank you very much for coming on this morning.
Senator, thank you so much. I'm curious, do you agree with the assessment from the Knicks that Philadelphia is not a sports town?
No, boy.
Look, the Sixers had an incredible run against the Celtics. Embiid came back from an operation, was able to dominate the Celtics, something the Sixers haven't done in a long time. I think the Knicks go on and win the whole thing. So congratulations.
What diplomacy. What diplomacy at this table.
It was going so well. Coming up, London Mayor